Can you tell me a little bit about what you do?
Yes, absolutely, Brogan. And first and foremost, thank you so much for having me. Our connection was phenomenal, and I'm just excited to be pouring into your community today. Like you said, I'm Dr. Patti Gonzalez, a retired chiropractor. And now, as a health concierge, a lot of people are like, that's a unique title. But it's just what I found myself doing. People are so unique and different in their health. And so I was like, well, I'm kind of a concierge because it depends on the person. It depends on what they come to me with. And I'm not always the one who has the solution for them. So if I don't have the answer, I will get them connected to who they need. Because I really believe that healing is multifaceted and I can only do so much. So
I love that. And I love that you're willing to be like, I don't know it, but I know someone who does. So, what made you retire from doing chiropractic care?
absolutely. Well, I'm a mom also. It was my daughter was probably around 6 or 7, and I had come home from the office late. She was already in jammies. Dinner was waiting for me on the stove, and I had to quickly eat so that I could get her into bed. And I was sitting there eating, and she goes, "Mommy, do you have to go to the office tomorrow?" And I was like, "Yep." And she was like, "Oh," and I went, "Ooh, okay." I need to shift into more mom mode. And that for me, and even though I was only in the office about 3 days a week at that time, I knew it was time for me to really pivot. And so over the next 6 months, I started to recognize that I wasn't just doing chiropractic with my patients. I mean, and I had known this over the 16 years I was in practice, but it was more about holistic health. So I was like, "Ooh, I can pivot into doing more health consulting, health concierge work, instead of doing that and the chiropractic adjustment." So that's what prompted me to retire. And I can honestly tell you that being able to spend more time with my daughter and also work with clients is the best of both worlds.
Absolutely. It's so important. And we have seasons, right? Like there's seasons where kids need us more. And
Mhm.
so I love that you were able to do that. Now with your work now, are you doing virtual and in the studio? How are you seeing clients?
Yes, so there is a balance. My daughter's now 10, and somehow I opened up another brick and mortar. So I now own a holistic body sculpting studio. So there is an in-office um, experience, but I'm not the only one who's there. So I have a team, and so I'm there while my daughter's in school, and then I get to pick her up from school every day, which is great. But yeah, I do a lot of work virtually with the health concierge clients. It's actually mostly virtual, and I'm sure we're going to get into it. But I also lead a group parasite cleanse, which people from all over the country and actually the world. We had someone join from South Africa a couple of months ago, so that was kind of fun.
Yeah, that's how I met you, and I'm so grateful for that opportunity. It was such a easier experience than I thought when thinking of a parasite cleanse because I've always heard of like herxing and just feeling absolutely terrible. So can you like go into that? Do you have to be feel terrible doing a parasite cleanse? How does that work for someone that doesn't know any much about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first and foremost, cleansing, if it is creating a lot of symptoms, your body's not ready for it. Your body's actually telling you, hey, this is too much, too fast. So I work very closely with my clients, not just in the parasite cleansing, but also just in general. Like I want to make it a gentle process. So with the parasite cleanse, it's actually very easy. It's a series of supplements that I put together with a company that already has a parasite cleanse, but their cleanse is typically 3, 5, or 7 days. And while I've done that, I also found I'm like, wait a minute, a parasite has a longer life cycle. So we're going to get into some really nitty gritty, like kind of maybe gross stuff for some people, but here it is. But the parasites have a life cycle. They live about 30 days and they lay eggs. So unfortunately, they're multiplying while they're inside of us, which is why we need to do a parasite cleanse to begin with. So I started to recognize we can't just do it for 7 days at the most. We have to do all 30 days because then we're going to catch all the pieces of the life cycle. We'll catch and we'll kill some of the eggs as well. So in the future, we won't have as many multiplying in us. And so there will be less need for more parasite cleanse in the future. So I still recommend doing a parasite cleanse about 1 to 2 times a year, just depending on the activities that you're doing that maybe will allow you to take on more parasites. But it's a very relative, I mean, you went through the process, like you said, it's a series of supplementation. There are some nutrition recommendations to be able to help people through the process, but for the most part, it's pretty easy. I have a couple of people who've gone through and they're like, no symptoms at all, other than in a good way. They were like, I have more clarity, I'm sleeping better, I've got more focus, more energy. So,
Yeah, that was me. I would say I felt really clear in the mind and just, it just felt, I started to feel better over time. It wasn't something that I was like dreading. You just don't know sometimes heading into it. What if someone is not ready? Like, how do you get their lymphatic system moving and their, them, you know, um, eliminating, I guess, more and having them prepare for a parasite cleanse?
absolutely. So I always do a one-to-one consult with people before they start the cleanse. So if I find any red flags in that initial consult that they're not pooping 2 to 3 times a day, or maybe they're only pooping every couple of days, their system's definitely not ready. So then we'll kind of back up a little bit. I want to get, like you said, I want drainage pathways open. I want them to be able to excrete and eliminate the parasites that we are killing. Because if you're killing them off and they don't have anywhere to go, you're going to be miserable. So we'll do a lot of prep work around maybe some nutrition and changing up some nutrition. Like you said, work with the lymphatic system to be able to open up that lymphatic system. And for a lot of people who are listening who might not know, our lymphatic system is basically our body's drainage. Think about it as our internal plumbing. It's your lymphatic system is actually going around and picking up all the debris and all the toxins and flushing it out through your kidneys. It filters it through the kidneys, and then you basically urinate out some toxins.
I love that. How much would you say like draining our lymphatic system or parasites could be, or I should say lack of, draining, could be the root cause of a lot of the diseases and autoimmune diseases that we have today?
Oh my gosh, it's actually so intricately linked. And if your lymphatic system isn't flowing, there is 100% chance you have a disease or a health challenge of some sort. Because, like I just said, your lymphatic system touches every other cell, organ, and system in your body. So, if there's a backup in that, then those wastes and those toxins and just the pure natural flow of things is not going to happen appropriately. So when we get back up, it's going to create a disease process. And the same is true for parasites. Most of us, actually, I'm going to back up. Everybody has parasites. Most of us can live with parasites because it's a symbiotic. They're actually help to clean out some of the microbiome, but it's when they get to be too much. And a lot of people think, well, I don't have parasites. I've never gone to a third world country. Well, they don't only live in third world countries. They live right in our own home with our pets, our dogs or our cats. And or it's in the food that we eat, the water that we drink, the lakes, rivers, and streams that we swim in. Um, so they're all around us. But it's how well our body is able to, like you asked, like how well is it able to eliminate and drain without creating more of like just, I guess, an infestation, so to speak.
What are some symptoms of a sluggish lymphatic system?
Well, that's a great question. So you're going to see a lot of edema or swelling, or like if you eat something that's maybe salty, you puff up very quickly. Brain fog, challenges with sleep in general, because when your body is resting, it's actually when it's actually doing a lot of repair work. So if your lymphatic system is backed up, you're not going to actually sleep very well because it's not going to be able to do its job right. There's also just hormone imbalance, unhealthy gut, so bloating, changes in either constipation or diarrhea. So it affects, like I said, all the systems. Now, specifically with parasites, there's some actually really unique symptoms that kind of pop up that people don't necessarily correlate with, oh, this must be parasites. It's things like grinding of teeth or drooling at night, or maybe excess boogers in the nose when there's no like reason for them. Um, Irritability, brain fog. So some of those symptoms, like you would think, oh, well, irritability, that's just I'm grumpy. Well, it could also be indicating parasites. So I've created a quiz. I think you took it. But I know you're going to link it in the show notes for people. So it's definitely something that's like, oh, I had no idea.
Yeah, it's very detailed too, so it's helpful. It's like it's eye-opening even just doing the quiz, seeing that, it could be related to these symptoms that we have.
Mhm.
Um, I have a question specifically actually for my husband. So my mother-in-law has MS, so I'm sure this is where it derived from, but I guess he learned that there's a connection between the parasites and MS. And he wants to know what the connection looks like. There's been references to parasites being helpful when found in living patients, but then I guess he found a study that on autopsies done found in MS patients, there was parasites in their brain. So do you know anything about this?
Yeah, well, not specifically that study, but it's super interesting that that got specifically pulled up and that the autopsy did show parasites in the brain. I think that freaks a lot of people out, but that's actually one place that parasites do reside, is in our brain. It's not just in our intestines. Um, but if you think about it, what is MS? It's a demyelination of the neurons in the brain. Well, what is causing that could potentially be parasitic activity. So there's absolutely a connection. There's actually a lot of connection if you dig deep enough, which is why parasites are a root cause issue. If you dig deep enough, most diseases can be linked back in some way, shape, or form to parasites. And now I might sound a little bit crazy, but parasites aren't the end all be all to everything. It's not just about parasite cleansing. I mean, we need to look at the big picture of everybody. But oftentimes, if there's some unexplained things and parasites haven't been looked at, that's where we need to start to look and say, well, I've done this A, B, C, and D, but I've never looked at parasites. Maybe it's time to take a look there.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you think there's any specific parasite that's worse than the other in location or the type of parasite?
Honestly, they're all pretty bad, but there's one toxoplasmosis, which can get into the brain. And it definitely wreaks a lot of havoc. But there's roundworms and flatworms and tapeworms, and there's all kinds of different worms that can affect our skin. They can get into our lymphatic system. They can be in the digestive tract. They can be in your eyes and your brain. So there's lots of places that they can hide. Um, and that's really what they do is they hide because they're just trying to survive. So they're going to do everything they can to kind of mask themselves so that they can continue to exist.
Yeah, absolutely. I've heard a lot about parasites being more active in the middle of the night or like around the moon. Is there truth to this?
There's absolutely truth to that. So when there's a full moon, we're obviously there's more light in the sky. So we create more serotonin. One of the things that parasites feed on is actually serotonin. So when our serotonin levels are higher, the parasites are more active. When the parasites are more active, there's just a stirring in us. And so it makes sleep more challenging. It creates more anxiety. It can create more irritability, like I said, more bloating, more like difficulty with foods, or digestive challenges. So there's a lot of things that can trigger with them being more active.
Wow, that's fascinating. I've always
Mhm.
thought like if I'm up in the middle of the night, I've had that question like, is there a parasite? Like just what's going on? But
Yes.
it's fascinating and disturbing. Like I I get pretty I don't get grossed out by a lot, but for some reason I think from being being in your group, the parasite thing, like coming out. Are there different ways that it comes out other than when you're using the bathroom? Like do they come out via sweat, through your skin? Like are there different ways that they come out?
One of the only other ways that they come out is through the skin. So a roundworm can come out through the skin. And I've actually had that experience on my arm. But we also have pets. My daughter had actually one of the cleanses we did 2 summers ago. She had actually ended up with a big ring. I'm sorry, a ringworm, a ring on her cheek. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is a ringworm. This is nuts. So they can push out through the skin because after all, our skin is our biggest organ. But for the most part, you are going to excrete them through the stool.
Okay. I do remember it was you with the the picture of the arm. Now,
Yep.
my question is, do you see the actual worm come out like when it comes through, or just kind of like you see it physically and then it kind of goes away once it's out?
Yeah. So it actually forms almost like a ring-like scab. And then, so no, you're not going to actually see a worm. And people ask me all the time, are they alive when they come out? No, they're never alive. They're not moving. We kill them on the inside and then you pass them in the stool. So there's not actually a physical like worm. It's like the remnant of the worm. That's actually that ring that comes through.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I know we had gotten a kitten one time and it gave us ringworm. We didn't even realize, but the whole family got it. So, we had ended up, this is before I knew anything about parasites or any of that. And we ended up, they had to have fungal medicine and
Mhm.
the topical cream, which the topical cream really wasn't working. So, what would you have done in a more natural scenario? Would you have just done the protocol that you do, or would there be something else to kind of get rid of that?
Yeah, my daughter actually had that ringworm um, long before she had done a parasite cleanse. So we did all the natural things. So there's antifungals that you can put on topically. We were doing a lot of antifungal things like, and this was difficult to do, but we had to get her to eat garlic. Garlic's a natural antifungal, antibacterial. Lots of coconut oil. So we would topically put the coconut oil on. So there are a lot of natural homeopathic remedies as well that you can do for those types of things. But as I learned about this parasite cleanse, it's definitely something that I would go straight to, like, I'm going to get on a supplement that's antifungal, antiparasitic, and get the body moving.
Yeah, I love that. Um, I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about would you say sculpt? What are you guys doing in there? Sorry.
It's a holistic body sculpting studio.
I love it. So is that kind of like holistic Botox? Tell me more about what's going on.
Yes. So we affectionately call, so what we do, it's a whole aesthetic circuit, as we call it. And there's a variety of different things from vibration therapy to open up the lymphatic system to red light in order to be able to help with fat loss and moving lymphatic system as well. And then we do cryostimulation. So it's a handheld cryo device that we're able to actually target different areas on the body. So ladies out there, if you've got that neck and chin that you're like, I just wish it was a little bit tighter, but there's no exercises for that. Or maybe the underneath the arms or lower belly or legs. Those are areas that we specifically tighten and target with the cryo. And then we also do lymphatic drainage and fascial compression. So all of those things are part of the aesthetic circuit in order to be able to shape, tone, and sculpt the body in a really holistic way that we're assisting the body versus something like Botox, where we are going to put something in to like freeze or stop the muscles from moving. So we're actually assisting the body. And our facial is actually affectionately called the Frotox because we're using the cryo instead of a chemical.
That's so awesome. I'm here for that. I would wish there was something like that by me. I probably would have to drive quite a bit. But what are I feel like there's might be someone listening that's like, "Oh, it's Botox, it's no big deal." Like what have you researched or know about Botox?
Yeah, it's funny. I remember way back in chiropractic school, we're talking over 20 years now, one of my classes was infectious diseases. And I very vividly remember the lecture where he was talking about neurotoxins and botulism. And he had the example of a can when it bubbles, like there's botulism inside that can, it's very toxic. And then we started to hear like Botox, and I'm like, wait a minute, those two things are the same. And so it's a neurotoxin. The reason it works to quote unquote freeze the face or the muscles or to lift things is because it's actually paralyzing the muscle from moving. And if someone chooses to do that, it's totally fine with me. However, it's not something that I want to do just because that memory is so burned in my brain of like what a neurotoxin does. And I was just like, I'm not interested. There are some people that come to Tight Club who are like, I've been doing Botox and I want to do something more natural. So we can actually help people transition from Botox into something more natural. And I also have clients who do choose to use Botox and they'll do that on their face and I work on their body. So there's zero judgment if someone chooses to do that. However, I know just for me personally, because of what it does to the body, I want to take a more holistic approach.
Yeah, I think sometimes when you know something, it's hard to want to do that, especially when you have children and you want to live long but thriving.
Hmm.
So I think it's good that you offer a full spectrum because everyone's different. So
Yes.
that's really neat. What are when people are coming to you, like do you see a common thread of symptoms or things that they're struggling with that they come to you for help for?
Are you talking specifically with body sculpting or in general with whole
Just in
concierge
general.
work?
Yeah. Yeah.
Ooh, well, I specialize in gut health, detox. And now, as I've been in the last year, I'm really starting to focus more on the lymphatic system. I'm actually in process of writing a book. I'm really excited to help deliver lymph detox at home because a lot of my clients, whether they be at Thai Club or working with gut health in the concierge department, they're wanting to do things at home. So I see a lot of benefit in like helping someone work on their lymphatic system on their own. So that's where the book has come from.
Oh, that's so exciting. I can't wait to check that out. What are some ways that you can do work on your lymphatic system at home? And is there one way that trumps the other? Like, lymphatic massage better than dry brushing? What are your thoughts on that?
I don't think there's one that's better than the other. And I think the more that you can do for yourself, the better your lymph is going to be. Some people aren't going to want to do dry brushing, but they're going to be totally fine with like doing some rebounding. Or like if they don't have a rebounder, they can go for a walk. So there are a variety of different things. That's why I'm writing the book. People keep asking me, what do I do? Lymphatic massage is fantastic, but what if someone doesn't have a great lymphatic massage therapist near them? Or they don't have the resources to do it. That's why I'm creating this. It's at home. That you can also do things like a contrast shower or cold plunge and then warm. So anything that's going to create that pump, because the one thing about the lymphatic system is it doesn't have a pump. Like our circulatory system has the heart to move the blood through the body, our lymph doesn't have that. So we have to manually do that. So things like stretching or, like I said, walking, yoga is great for it. Anything that we can do to really what happens is when we pump the muscles, it actually pumps the lymphatic system.
I love it. The lymphatic system is so cool. And
It's so cool.
do you want to talk a little bit more about walking? I feel like it's so underrated in
Mhm.
what it does for your health.
Absolutely. And actually, walking is actually very near and dear to my heart because when I retired from chiropractic, I found myself in my own health crisis. I had been pushing hard for nearly 20 years. I was in practice for 16 and school for 3.5. Um, and I just hit flat burnout. And I took a month off and I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna like take a month and chill. And that turned into 6 months because my body was just like, nope, you need to rest. And one of the things that really saved me was walking. Where we lived at the time, we were on property, we had a lot of acreage around us. So I would go walk the hills. I would be gone for 45 minutes. And my husband was like, that was a long walk. I'm like, I know, but like moving my system, moving my body, like just helped to like bring clarity to my mind. It strengthened my muscles. My husband was always like, well, why aren't you going to the gym? And I'm like, I physically can't. Like it would be too much for my system. It would actually create more stress. But the walking, and this is where I think walking gets a bad rap. Like when you walk, you're working a lot of different systems at once, especially if you're like focused. I mean, a stroll is one thing, but when you're walking, use your arms. If you can walk and talk with someone, then you have a better gauge of like, if it's almost hard to talk, you're doing it right.
Yeah, I love that. In terms of um walking, right? Like, so it's just basically being enough to kind of get you a little labored, right? Like, where you're not just, because I mean, I walk around the house and I might get 10,000 steps, but I'm not, is it, am I still getting something or is it you hit a certain level where you're getting more benefits?
Yes, you're still getting benefit. That movement, I mean, if you were sitting at a desk instead of walking around your house, you're getting far more benefit, even just walking around the house. And if you can, for even like 20 minutes a day, go get outside and go walk till like you're in a hurry. That's one of the things that I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he does a lot of the brain. Dr. Amen talked a lot about when you can walk like you're in a hurry, at least 20 minutes a day, it actually helps to stimulate your brain. So you are still getting benefit wandering. No, I shouldn't say wandering. You're like working around your house doing 10,000 steps. So you are getting the benefit. And if you can, go get out there and get breathless a little bit.
Yeah, I love that. And I feel like there's so much just free resources for us to be healthy. And maybe we don't take advantage of it enough, or sometimes maybe we want it to be harder, right? That it has
Mhm.
to be harder. But can you just talk more about um like working smarter in terms of especially women, that are dealing with hormones, dealing with stress, right? There's hormetic stressors, which are good, but when do you kind of know that you're kind of going over the line where you have to kind of reel it back in?
I think one of the biggest signs, especially for women, is when we kind of hit that overload. I was just talking to a girlfriend this morning and she was like, and then this, and then this, and then this. It's like all these things were piling on top. And she was like, I just need a moment. And so I think as women, we tend to wear a lot of hats, right? We're mom, we're wife, or we're partner, and like maybe we work, maybe we don't. We have friends, we have family, all of the hats that we wear. I think as women, if we can make sure that the first person that we take care of every day is ourselves, then we are able to better love on and serve those around us. So I want to give a really very simple example because I think the analogy of like make sure you fill your cup first. You have to, I want you to picture a different kind of a cup because when I think of like, oh my gosh, if I'm a cup, my daughter's a cup, my husband's a cup, and there's all these cups around me, I'm like, dang, I need a really big pitcher to fill up all those cups. Where's that pitcher come from? Well, if you change that mindset of instead of it being a cup, if it's a teacup with a saucer, you are the teacup, everything else is the saucer. So filling yourself first and then the overflow, then you get to serve others from once you're full. So mamas, if you're out there and women, if you're not a mama, get up and give yourself like first thing, like drink some lemon water, go for a walk, have some quiet time, jump in the shower. Sometimes I remember being a new mom, I'm like, I just want to shower, just want to shower. Um, and or give yourself an extra 30 minutes to sleep in. I think sometimes we as women don't prioritize sleep quite enough. And that's one of the biggest areas where we can really reap the most benefit because it allows our body to repair.
Yeah, that's so good. Sleep is so good. I didn't ever realize, I how important sleep was and still is, right?
Mhm.
Sean Stevenson? Yeah, his book Smarter really put things in perspective. But can you talk about maybe devices and what things affect our sleep, caffeine devices, or what you found with your clients um, that kind of disrupts their sleep, and what have you found helps most to get restful quality sleep?
Absolutely. Well, I think devices is one of the biggest things that really knocks us off because our circadian rhythms, like the natural rhythm of our sleep and our wake cycle, get totally disrupted because we've got a blue light in our face. And I know for me, when my daughter was younger, it was like, well, the only time that I have is after she's asleep. And then I like found myself in my phone. So there are now like red light, either screen covers, but there's also a setting that's super easy that you can put on. So it's a red light setting on your phone. So you're not sucking in that blue light at night. So devices are a big thing. Also, like where your devices are while you are sleeping. So if they're right next to your bed, put it on airplane mode and or grab a good old fashioned alarm clock and stick your phone in a different room. I think we're so conditioned, and this is one thing that my husband and I made the change this year, is we now want our phones in a different room. We got an alarm clock, and it's shifted things. We also have like no phones after like 8 or 9 p.m. so that we can actually sit and talk with each other. Um, Some of the other things that really do disrupt our sleep are our stress levels. If our cortisol is too high, it's going to create an imbalance. And when our stress level is high, our mind kind of goes. So one of the things I actually tell a lot of my clients is if you can get in bed around 9 p.m., the more sleep that you can get before midnight, the more deep sleep you're going to get. And if 9 p.m. seems like, oh my gosh, I can't get anything done at 9 p.m. and going to bed at 9 p.m., okay, 9:30 or 10, but at the latest, make it 10 o'clock. I actually have a client who she's like, I just can't sleep. And I said, well, what time do you go to bed? She's like, oh, 10:30, 11:30. And I was like, just can you shift to try to get into bed at 9:30? She told me the next day, she's like, I about passed out. Like I gasped when I woke up at 7:30. Like she literally slept 9:30 to 7:30. And she was like, if it was really that simple, like how come nobody told me before? So I think that's one of the biggest things. Get to bed earlier so that you can get more quality sleep. And then those morning times can be more nourishing and refreshing. And I also know that there are some people who are just night owls. And that's how their body works a little bit better. I'm grateful. I'm actually the opposite. Like I really like to get up early and be active early morning, but you have to play with and know your body. Again, that's why I'm a concierge. Everybody's different.
Yeah, everyone is so different, but I love that with the phones in the other room. I really try to do that every night. We used to have a timer for the Wi-Fi, and then I don't know what happened, but I unplugged the Wi-Fi, put my phones out there because it's like if you bring it into bed, you're gonna be on it, you're gonna be scrolling, and I've noticed too, like I just cut my social media time so I can't even go on and you're just more productive in your day. And I feel like I sleep better too. So, is there truth to, I think I read somewhere when I was breastfeeding Cameron, I wasn't sleeping very well, that our best sleep for hormone is between 10 and 2 a.m. Is that
Mhm.
true? And why? Why is that the time?
It sure is. And actually, what's interesting is women, we make human growth hormone all the time because our body needs to be able to obviously help create a human. So it's especially prominent when we are in that mothering time of our lives. And what's crazy is we actually have an increase in HGH production between midnight and 2 a.m. So if you're not getting deep enough sleep before that midnight hour, that HGH production is going to drop. So that's why I tell people if you can get in bed by 10, you're going to start to get into that lower, like twilight sleep, and then you can get into deeper sleep by midnight. It's actually going to create better HGH production. And here's a fun fact. I know there's probably more women listening, but ladies, tell your men this. Men only produce HGH between midnight and 2 a.m. They don't do it the rest of the day. So make sure your men are asleep too.
So interesting. It's so cool how, men are so different, right? Their cycles are literally 24 hours. Uh,
Hmm.
how do you talk to the woman that, we have like 28 day, we're always, fluctuating, how to take advantage of the beauty that, our hormone system is.
Absolutely. I think it's really finding a practice. This is not something I specialize in. So this is something I have a great friend who focuses on hormones, but really, like you said, understanding your cycle, your body, how your body does best in those cycles, like each week of the month, because you're right, we cycle on a monthly basis, men cycle daily. Could you imagine if we as women cycled daily? It would be wild. Um, so I think really finding that practitioner that can help you start to understand or even reading up on it. There's so much on the internet now of just understanding cycling. There's things like seed cycling that you can do. There's things like understanding like when you're in a certain phase, maybe you should be doing more walking versus lifting weights. So there's definitely a lot of science to it. And again, not my specialty, but I will find someone for you.
Yeah, I love that. You'll have to tell me who that person is when we get off here. I also wanted to ask you one last thing before I head off, but in terms of emotions and how
Mm,
they're connected, I know you've done break, right? You're a practitioner, correct? Yeah,
almost.
almost. Okay, almost practitioner. But how do emotions affect our health? I know it's a loaded question.
Such a loaded question. I'm like, you want this to be the last question, really?
I guess
Um,
go into it a little more, but yeah, I just
Absolutely. So maybe this is podcast two that we go into
yeah.
next time. But Um, wow. How do our, ask the question again, because now my brain just went in like six different directions.
So maybe, okay, maybe how do our emotions affect our lymphatic system? What, or yeah, let's do that.
Okay. So it's more a little bit the other way around. So our emotions actually affect our organs more so than our organs affect our emotions. Um, so when we have like a lot of high stress, or maybe let's say we're in peace, or we're like, so the whole goal is honestly, it's not joy or happiness because those are like accelerated high emotions. And obviously, the goal is not to be depressed or sad. We want to be right in the middle with peace. So, being able to find that peace, homeostasis, is actually the exact same thing our body wants to find. So, we don't want to be, if we kind of can parallel the emotion with our nerve system. So, our nerve system wants to find that homeostasis. It doesn't want to be in sympathetic, which is fight or flight, like, I've got to go. Like, it's the society that we live in nowadays, like, go, 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 everything's high stress. And we also don't want to be in like parasympathetic, which is rest and digest. And I don't really want to do anything. I just want to hang out. So it's finding that balance between the two. I think that's really important for our emotions as well. Like, are we going to have highs and are we going to have lows? Absolutely. But when we have those highs and lows, it's going to affect our nerve system and all of our body systems in a certain way. So I think the big goal in life is really to find that homeostasis. If we could all just go live on an island somewhere and not have to stress about, I was thinking about it this morning as I was blow drying my hair and like, I gotta get out of the house. I'm like, wouldn't it be cool if I was on an island somewhere and I didn't have to worry about this?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think in our society, right, it almost makes it harder because there's just so much going on, right, with technology and trying to keep up and, just so much to do where sometimes we need to go back on the more simplified life, So I think that's great for this podcast in terms of you giving some awesome tips in terms of helping someone maybe just figure out how to move their lymphatic system or, check with Parasites. She has a great quiz and I'm going to link everything, but can you let everyone know how to find you? Are you going to be having another Parasite? Do you do it monthly?
Yep. So best way to find me is on Instagram right now, and you'll link that in the show notes, but it's Dr. Dr. period, Patti Gonzalez. And I have a website as well. It's innateroots.com. But the next round of parasite cleansing happens on February 7th. And you can, oh, I always do it around the full moon. We talked a little bit about it. We want the cleanse to kind of hit midway, the full moon to hit midway during the cleanse. So there will always be one. I don't do them every single month, but actually it's starting to, there are more people jumping on board every month. So there is a lot of like just desire for it. So yeah, the next one is coming in February and just in time for Valentine's Day.
Awesome. And just real quick, what do they get if they're gonna book it and do the Parasite with you for the month? What do they get? Like what comes with it?
Absolutely. So it's one cost and it includes the supplements. I will set up a one-on-one phone call with you to customize the program to you. All supplements are included. There's also a group chat that you can ask questions in. So I'm available in that group chat 100% of the time in those 30 days and beyond. You can stay in the chat if you want. I know some people are still in there from previous ones. I think you're still in there too,
Yep.
right? I love it. It was like a year and a half ago that you did it, but you're like, I'm still there.
I love it.
Um, there's also a 30-minute video explaining the parasite cleanse and then a dosage chart. So I help you understand exactly, I lay everything out for you. And then I also just included the top 10 detox foods that you can be eating while on it.
Okay, so good. Well, yeah, I will attest that this program's great. She gives just loaded with resource, especially for someone new to it that's maybe coming in having no idea. You really lay it out. So thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to have this opportunity just to chat with you and get your knowledge.
Thank you so much, Brogan. It's been an absolute blessing to chat with you.
Thanks, girl.